All of us know that about 66 million years ago, dinosaurs disappeared from the face of the Earth, and the cause was a global catastrophe. A meteor hit the Earth and destroyed the entire species of dinosaurs, marking the end of the Cretaceous period. But have you ever wondered what exactly happened right after all the dinosaurs in the world disappeared? In this video, we're going to tell you all about it, so make sure you watch it till the end. And to know what happened immediately after such a catastrophe that led to a mass extinction of an entire species, we have to go back in time. So let's begin. Things were actually entirely different on Earth back then. And looking at it now, it feels like an entirely different planet altogether. And it makes sense, because humans had not set foot on it back then. The Earth was home to various species that no longer exist, or exist in an entirely different, evolved form that was almost completely destroyed by a meteor strike. Now, let's find out what happened after the meteor hit the surface of the Earth. Which inhabitants were wiped out immediately, which ones survived, and what climate changes were caused by the incident? And how did our planet Earth recover from such a massive blow? This actually happened at the end of the Mesozoic era. However, scientists still argue about the asteroid that hit the Earth, but what we know for now is that the diameter of the meteor was somewhere between 11 to 80 kilometers, or 7 to 50 miles. In other words, it was probably the size of Washington DC, and its size can be better explained by this. When one end of the meteor had hit the surface of the Earth, the other was still beyond the flight zone of the Boeing 747, and the enormous asteroid could not have passed without leaving a mark. So, it left an enormous crater that covered half the Gulf of Mexico. The diameter of the crater was 150 kilometers or 93 miles, and it was 20 kilometers or 12 miles deep. Even though it wasn't the first collision between our planet and a celestial body, it was the largest, and it had the biggest impact. The entire world changed in an instant. There were mega tsunamis as high as 100 meters or 330 feet, and were big enough to reach the territory of modern-day Texas and Florida. Some experts even say they were far higher, at a height of 300 meters or 985 feet, which is as high as the Eiffel Tower, while some even say the first wave went 1.5 kilometers or 0.9 miles high, which is 5 times higher than the Eiffel Tower. So much water was displaced by the meteor that waves kept crashing on the coastline for 10 hours. And this isn't even the worst case scenario. The tsunamis could have been even higher. When the asteroid hit, the explosion was 100 million times more powerful than the Tsar bomber. In just a single second, forests that were thousands of kilometers or hundreds of miles away were destroyed. If there's any equivalent to the explosion that we can make sense of, then it's 100 trillion tons of TNT, enough to totally destroy the coastline, causing 12-point severe earthquakes and landslides as far away as Argentina. And these caused even more tsunamis. And that's not it. The explosion was enough to set fire to the Earth, as far as 1500 kilometers or 930 miles. It was a true chain of horrifying disasters, and if you imagine yourself there, it's impossible for you to survive. Even huge dinosaurs failed to withstand these horrible disasters. Enormous species of dinosaurs, such as the Diplodocus, died, and others who weren't hit directly by the explosion or the fire were wiped out by the waves. The Earth became hell, not just metaphorically, but also quite literally. Tiny particles and various fragments were launched into the atmosphere, and the pressure was so intense that it spread throughout the planet. 40 minutes after they were blown into the air, they began falling rapidly on the ground, and they were now 100 times more dangerous than hot glass falling from the sky, since their kinetic energy was equivalent to 20 million megatons of TNT, which converted into heat. The Earth's atmosphere rose up and became hell. Various terrestrial organisms were in the area that was affected, and those organisms that survived the tsunamis and the earthquakes died within a few hours because of the intense heat. Back then, the entire Earth was covered with forests and caught fire. 75% of all life on Earth was destroyed, which included any mammal weighing more than 25 kilograms or 55 pounds. And not only that, even the oceans were oxidized by the acid rains that followed. Even the plant species couldn't survive. The sun's rays were blocked by the soot from the fires and the dust, depriving the Earth from sunlight for an entire year. This had an immense negative impact on the climate, and even the plants that had previously somehow survived could not bear the absence of sunlight and died. Now, you must be wondering, after all this destruction, were there any organisms that survived? The answer is yes. Somehow, the ancestors of turtles and crocodiles withstood all destruction and the climate catastrophe. Experts have called that phase lunar, because the entire Earth was barren, desolate, and there was no chance of survival, yet life didn't entirely stop. Even though the majority of the organisms were dead, those that remained began to reproduce, hence repopulating the planet. The foraminifera were the first living organisms to recover. After a few years, ferns followed suit. It took them a millennium to occupy all that space that was left. However, large animals faced the most difficulties. There was an extreme shortage of food, hence only small animals that weighed 600 grams or 1.3 pounds roamed the earth. Flowering plants and nutritious seeds were also short. It was after 100,000 years that mammals returned to the size of a raccoon, and finally palm forests were seen on the earth and the planet was gradually returning back to normal. And finally, 200,000 years after the palm period came the period of pecan pie. In this period, there was more nutritious food and the mammals greatly benefited from it, increasing the diversity of species 3 times. Now, the largest animals were 25 kilograms or 55 pounds, which is the weight of a gazelle. Mammals and plants evolved side by side. Then, 700,000 years later, beans emerged, which worked as protein bars for mammals, which further increased the size and diversity of the mammals and other species. Now the weight of the mammals reached 50 kilograms or 110 pounds, which is the weight of a large-sized cheetah. The oceans recovered far more slowly. According to scientists, it took 3 million years for flow of organic material to return back to normal. The vacant ecological niches were taken over by new species. And here's an interesting fact. Paleontologists consider birds to be one of the few surviving dinosaurs. The non-avian versions were wiped out, but some lizards still withstood all this, owing to their ability to swim, dive and seek shelter in water swamps. And many bird species are able to build their nests on the ground. Due to these abilities, they managed to survive all the horror that surrounded them. Eventually, life on Earth returned to normal, and over time, because of evolution, humans appeared. And what's fascinating is that it wasn't possible if the meteor didn't hit the Earth. It would be fair to say that the collision was actually a trigger for human evolution. But what would happen if an asteroid that massive hit the Earth today? Well, humans might get wiped out, but the Earth will survive. Life goes on. If you like this video, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And for more fascinating videos like this one, subscribe to our channel.